Yeah, definitely.
We're on. Hello. I was having with all this. No, I tell you what, I'm quite comfortable with it until it gets really hot, and you just suddenly like. There's a reason why I used to shave it all off. There you go. I've never had long hair. Well, not since I was like a real kid. I thought, stuff it. I'll give it a go. You know, you got to stick with it a bit. Well, yeah, that's what a lot of people do and say. So it might be a mess, but at least it's there. Anyway, we're live on YouTube, believe it or not. I'm just going to go and make sure everybody's okay over here. Then else we'll start recording. When it's
Everybody, we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Just want to make your way back to your seats, or to your seats. That would be fantastic.
Yes, no, I didn't need to on it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've got that one on speaker. But
Jen came and got it. I think perhaps she's been left it in
Who's on this table, chaps? Because we're live on this table. Yeah, of course you are. I might have to go over a couple of inches, but otherwise you think if that's all right. I don't want you to knock everything over. It's all very precarious.
It's all very high tech.
It's really not. It's called a bodge. All right, let's have a go. Come on, camera.
Everybody, welcome to Glamis Hall. Delighted to welcome you here. This event is being generously funded by our colleagues from Glamis Hall and co-hosted by our friends from Wellingborough Hustings. Thank you to to make sure that there is something for us all. On our town council, Wellingborough, you might recognise my name because I did that a lot. We have all our candidates presented tonight. And today our meeting if you there's got content over here, and again, please feel free to pop over there and I'll cover the vote. That room, not this room, but the other part of the building, so if you want to make a donation, that would be great to receive by our friends at Glamis Hall. I will do a fire alarm tonight, so if there is an alarm goes off, can you make your way calmly and quickly either out like that back door there, or just you can right there in the fire exit. Please get there half an hour at the back here. Live stream tonight today.
We are live streaming. We're live on YouTube. You can get it on the Wellingborough Eco Group's website. The same link that everybody's seen to actually get to this event tonight. So it's on there. It's also across social media, Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter.
And the hope is that after the event, for those people that weren't able to come tonight, because not everybody can, that we'll be able to see a recording of our proceedings this evening. There was some. Thank you very much anyway for attending. We have questions that have been put forward by the community, and we're going to go through those tonight. Just to, before I pass on to Ben, I just want to introduce all the candidates. Firstly, in the Green Party, we have Paul Mannion, and the Labour Party, on the Labour Party, we have Ben Pinky. On the SDP, we have Hillary. And from the UK, we have Ben. We're all the candidates standing as well. He's starting to think about what and he is going to take the out, which only
Thank you, Barry. If you can't hear at any time during proceedings, just wave, and we'll make sure we encourage the candidates or myself to speak up. It's really important that you're able to hear and be heard. We're going to begin with me inviting candidates to just briefly make a 3-minute statement. And we've got a helpful little blurb. Please explain a bit about yourself, why you're standing to be our MP, And to quote Baker, I think it's in the room, no flannel. What will you do to help the people of Wellingborough if you were elected? It's very helpful, thank you. So, am I right? Not politically, I'm sure. And just if, yeah, please. And if just give 3 minutes about why you've stand.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremy Britton. I've got a mic, so. 1 second. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'll start again. My name is Jeremy Britton. I am the Social Democratic Party candidate for the Wellingborough and Rushden area. I'm honoured to be chosen by the SDP to represent the area I love and know so well. We are one of the smaller parties standing in the election. As a result, I appreciate that not everyone is going to be familiar with us and what we stand for. So just to give people an idea, the SDP were first formed in the early 80s by then disaffected Conservative and Labour politicians. We are a centre ground party, the left on social economics, family, community, and of course, social democracy for us all is at our heart. If you want to know more about us, we recently released our manifesto that was called Homecoming, and can be found at sdp.org.uk should you wish to know more about it. So back to me and local issues. I was born at the Isbrook Hospital 61 years ago. I was born up in nearby High Ferrers. I went on to raise my own family in the same town and still live in the very same home today. I worked to run businesses for many years in Wellingborough from as far back as the early 1980s. I'm old enough to remember visiting Wellingborough Zoo as a child, which was a stone's throw away actually from Glamis office. You remember that. So there have been many changes since then. I and my family have been here to witness them and be affected by them, whether good or bad. Our small market town has grown into the large, vibrant, enriched and ethnically diverse community it is today. Perhaps welcoming Wellingborough brought me my wife of 35 years, whose mother was one of the many original Windrush generation to come to the area. I hope you agree, all of these things give me a unique understanding and perspective on just what makes Wellingborough work and tick. My heart, soul, and mind is shaped by the area I wish to represent. I'm passionate about it, and I promise to take that passion to Parliament if elected. Priorities for me for Wellingborough would be to ensure that the very same hospital I was born in, Isbrook, is developed into one that is fit to comprehensively serve 50,000 residents of Wellingborough and the other approximately 50,000 in surrounding villages. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you for listening to me. I look forward to receiving any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming along tonight. And thank you, Father Ben, for chairing this, and Marion for inviting me. I'm flattered to be here. I just want to say I have to leave at 8:30. So if I get up at 8:30 and leave, it's not because I've been offended by anything said or incapable of holding my ground in this debate. It's simply that I have to leave. I'm in politics reluctantly. I don't want to be in politics. I'm in it because I think that the prevailing forms of government and the prevailing ideology with which we are governed is deeply dangerous for the United Kingdom. I believe that economically, culturally, democratically, and constitutionally, the United Kingdom is being challenged on all fronts. Economically, if you look at the landscape, we have national debt at a post-World War II high, taxation at a post-World War II high, and rising. We have GDP flatlining, GDP per capita shrinking, in large part because of cheap, unskilled labor that we've imported from across the world. We have adopted, and I know we'll be talking about it, we've adopted this ideological obsession with getting to net zero by 2050, which is economically emasculating the United Kingdom. And whether you believe the planet is facing a climate crisis or not is academic. What you need to look at is the policy response that the governments have put forward, which is which is the net zero policy, a one-size-fits-all Paris Accord global policy that is deeply damaging to the United Kingdom, and I think we talk about that in due course. Culturally, we are being hijacked, I think, through the educational establishment. There's a move to decolonize what they call the English language. They teach our children that the wealth of this country has been made entirely, as far as I can see, what our children are taught at school, from the slave trade, that our forefathers are something of which to be ashamed. St. Paul's Cathedral had Winston Churchill down as a white supremacist, and I hold him out to be one of the greatest Britons that ever lived. And in that cultural implosion, we are losing our self-confidence as a people, and our nation state, which turns dramatically, of course, of having a settled culture and self-confidence in ourselves, is being undermined. Democratically, we've been hollowed out by Tony Blair and David Cameron, ceding power to supranational institutions and so-called independent domestic bodies. We have a border down the Irish Sea, against which I stand completely. We've got to take Northern Ireland back into the Union with Great Britain, and that's why I'm in it.
What they want.
Well, it's vital to get our message out. We don't have, unfortunately, at the moment, the activists or the resources that bigger parts of us do, because this is really important for us. And Actually, I'm a post office assistant and courier. I live in Wellingborough, just off the Queensway. I'm standing at the shop to be loaned the Green Party. And the Green Party have taken different approaches in, shall I say, the less policy seats in this election. Some are saying huge streams are possible and the establishment parties to the Greens that they're in to win and so forth. This isn't a slight against the Green candidates who are taking this view. I'm taking a more realistic approach here in this constituency. Having been out campaigning with Greens in our target seats, the likes of North Herefordshire, where an enormous 40% of things on the cards from Tories to the Greens requires a considerable amount of effort and resources of boots on the ground. It's years in the making, and we don't have those resources yet. So the cry goes up, I suppose. It's a wasted, the usual thing. It's like that wrong. There's several reasons why smaller parties are slowly increasing their vote share and influence the establishment parties for good or ill. An obvious example is the example in the UK. Never had more than 2 seats, never scored more than 12% of the vote, and then you could say they weren't in the election. Second point is short money. Opposition parties who get more than 1 seat have more than 150,000 votes to get additional state funding. So if you like what you've heard from our leadership people, target seats like Tyler Denning or Adrian Ramsey, these guys can get more prominent voices in Parliament and more votes the Greens get nationally. And finally, I think the key point is we're heading for a Labour government. Polls today at the Tories is 17%. So really, it's about holding the next Labour government to account and being honest. In just the last few months, we've seen the leadership U-turn on the 20-year climate pledge, on restoring bankers' bonuses, on bans of our contracts, on having private home for a home refi, and it goes on and on. And that's just the last few months. Never mind, Mr. Starmer's 10 pledges he was actually elected on as well. So a massive part is going to be holding the next Labour government to account. And a bigger growing Green voice alongside the 4 MPs we have together gives us a chance to keep the good policies that Labour do have, and we do have a lot of agreement. For example, on VAT fees on private schools and so forth. We want to keep those in, and we want them to be a bit more ambitious and a bit more bold. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to read a statement from Chris Townsend from the Lib Dems, which would have been his 3-minute introduction. So you'll give me the same 3-minute warning. Okay. First of all, I want to pass on my apologies for not being there with you all tonight. Sadly, I had a pre-existing commitment agreed long before the snap election was called. Also, my thanks to Marion for organising this event, giving me the chance to have this statement read out, also keep it brief. Right now, our systems are not working, not for everyone. We have had a government mired in sleaze, scandal and incompetence. Our rivers have been polluted with raw sewage. Cost of living has made day-to-day living hard for so many. Means we have a generation for whom things like house ownership and stability seem like faraway dreams. I'm not the candidate who will say that all of this will be easy to fix. I believe in being honest with you about the hard choices coming, but it is a challenge I'm up for should you choose me. I'm a pretty classical liberal. I believe that the state should support everyone to have equality of opportunity in life and chances. I also believe that we have to build a strong economy that could support a proper welfare system that is there to care for those who need it. We also have a responsibility to care for the world that we leave to the next generations. So how do we begin to fix all this? The Liberal Democrats are offering a fair deal in this election, as our manifesto pledge, building the homes that people need, 380,000 a year, of which 150,000 will be for social housing to begin to rebuild the stocks depleted since Thatcher's time. These must be built to the highest energy standards, with renewables coming on stream to support them, helping bring down some of these costs of living. We need a new deal for dentists, GPs, to bring more of them back into NHS service, to provide the services that people need. Right now, it's impossible to find an NHS dentist in Wellingborough and Rushden. Many are going without care. We have to move closer to Europe, rebuild the relationships with our closest trading partners as the first steps towards rejoining the single market. and recover the jobs and livelihoods this extreme Brexit has cost us. Day one, I pushed for us to accept the offer of the EU for British people under 35 to be allowed to work and live in the EU freely. And we need to make polluters pay. As an example, I want to abolish Ofwat and bring in a new regulator with powers to fine water companies properly for polluting our rivers, bringing the same standards for our rivers as we do for some beaches through an expanded pollutant flag scheme. I hope that gives you some idea of what I'm about and my passion. Once again, I'm sorry for not being there with you. Happy for Marion to pass along my email to any who would like it. So that's from Chris Townsend, who's standing for the Liberal Democrats. So we'll move on to our first question, and the questions have been fed in through the website. This is the first one. There are significant housing challenges in our area, with more than 7,000 homes due to be built around Wellingborough in the next few years, but with few of them actually likely to be available to people on the council's housing waiting list. What will you do to make housing affordable to rent, buy and run in our area? And we'll go the reverse way, if that's okay.
Well, housing issues obviously massive nationally and in Wellingborough. Both parts of it, both major parties on this issue are seeing much the same issue in my opinion. They're both talking about building millions of new homes, but if you look into the detail, it's about encouraging private developers to build. And private developers have a vested interest in house prices higher, and they're killing that way. So you need intervention in the market. The Greens proposal actually is what Chris just mentioned, but then there's also 100,000 social homes each year delivered by the federal government, as it used to be before a certain substantial came along. We'd also end the right to buy disaster once and for all. Remember what right to buy was originally meant to be about, which was to increase home ownership among tenants. Now we find out half of those right to buy properties are being rented out in the private sector at inflated rates. So that needs to go once and for all. We've introduced rent controls which work successfully in other parts of the world. And also, it always comes down here where landlords will sell up. We've also got a policy of buy the supply of councils. That already kind of happens now. It needs to be ramped up so that we get out that housing stock. But unfortunately, if you just leave it to the market, you're going to have the same problems. The house prices won't come down. We've been doing that for decades. So we need some state intervention to get the housing, social housing stock back in place, delivered by local authorities at genuinely affordable rents. And that's the only thing I think will solve the housing crisis.
Generation below me. They're not only on, I would also probably one of the that I know my age group that's actually going to have. So yes, we've heard it. We're looking for 1.5 million homes by the end of the 5-year plan, which is 300,000 a year. We want to meet the demand, and actually here in Wellingborough, around social housing by the council. We have one we have rural, we have Queensway. Through my time in renting, I met on all three of them on 2030 and 2035 strategy about what housing they would like to do and what got really on. So we want to know really, I think, what pick up, is that better? Okay, sorry. So, Again, buying and council open homes here wouldn't necessarily work because the council's not actually set up for it, but actually giving housing associations the ability to do that is also part of the Labour manifesto. So we are hoping, in conclusion, for those that couldn't hear earlier, sorry, we're looking to meet demand by building £1.5 million homes over 5 years. We are already met with Great Well Grand Union and Longhurst, who are the housing associations here locally. We would make sure we've got something there, and that we are able to buy in home as well. Thank you very much.
The Liberal Party says they want to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years. Liberal Democrats, I think, said 380,000 homes per year. This country has never turned out more than around 300,000 homes in any year. And then that was in the post-war period when regulations were set aside in order to deal with all the difficulties that World War II had created. And the problem at the moment is one that neither the Labour Party, certainly not the Liberal Democrats, or the Conservatives will address. Because what they've done progressively is make the building of housing more and more complex in terms of regulations and more expensive because of this drive, this ideological tilt towards net zero, which has two effects. The first is that all the component parts of building a house goes up dramatically because of the cost of fuel and the cost of the bricks and everything else that goes into a property, but also because of the requirements for heat exchangers, extra insulation, and so on. And when you have that kind of regulatory burden on the creation of a product, instead of accelerating the development of code, what you're going to do is slow it down dramatically and push those costs up, making it even more unaffordable for people. And it is tragic that actually you go around the town centres of Rushden and Wellingborough, and there are lots of derelict property which should be repurposed, brought back into use, but they can't do it because of the regulatory burden. We need to deregulate the planning system, we need to deregulate the building regs, and we need to expedite the creation of more homes. The other thing that we need to do is cut back immigration. We've had 2.5 million people net come to this country over the last 3 years. That is a level of intake for which we simply cannot build enough housing. It is not possible. And we need a holistic approach to the development of cost-effective housing and repurposing buildings that are derelict in our town centres across the United Kingdom.
Thank you. I sort of agree with some of what Ben said, reference the immigration side of things that has got to be checked. We just can't produce enough homes that quickly. What I would say is I am a big believer in getting housing sorted, social housing. There seems to be a lot of emphasis on us building houses for people to buy. I mean, really and truthfully, it shouldn't be that way. We should offer that. Yes, I wouldn't want to take away anyone's right to buy, but we certainly need more social housing. When that was done years ago, I'm old enough to remember during the 60s and 70s when the council houses were first getting built en masse around here. And, you know, it was a privilege for people to own them. For whatever reason, we let these estates, some of them, get a sort of bad name and get stigmatised. We really have got to change that. This, I feel, if we can do it, will help. It will give young people. I've got 3 young lads, 2 of them are in their 20s, still live at home because they can't afford to rent or buy a property. One does rent. But I think what it would do as well, if we can get this housing, more social housing locally, it will also help with less demand on the market for buying houses, which will keep that sort of evened out as well. So it's a no-brainer, really. And the other thing, of course, if the council own these houses, eventually the new houses they'll get built, they'll get money for, and then we're into the council earn profit, which can go on to other local things like potholes and stuff like that. Okay, thank you.
Question 2 is from a Julie Robinson. She suggests you could say just yes or no. Question 2 says, as you are all candidates connected from a political party, would you have the courage to speak against the party line if you felt it would benefit this constituency more?
Well, yeah, simple answer is yes, I would. I mean, we, the SDP party, you know, we do talk, and I think most political parties do. People have their views, and things get expressed, and if I felt that strongly about something that went against the party line, particularly as a local, your local FP, I would not be afraid to speak my mind. So the answer to that is yes, I would.
I think that is an absolutely brilliant question, because what we've experienced in the United Kingdom is the dumbing down of our democracy and our parliamentarians over over my lifetime. And part of the problem has been this collective responsibility that's created by being a member of a party. So when you hear Jacob Rees-Mogg, lots of other Conservative members of government talk about collective responsibility and therefore towing the party line, actually what they're saying is that there's collectively no responsibility because they're all towing the party line, and they abrogate responsibility. And I think whilst you obviously need to have certain guidelines which you follow and you should buy into when you join a party, you should be absolutely prepared to challenge those who set the policies if the policies are deeply damaging to the country. And I draw the line on the kinds of things I've been talking about, particularly on things that affect the Constitution. So I find it an absolute affront to the democratic principle and to the constitutional status of the United Kingdom that somehow the two political parties that govern this country, the Labour Party and the Conservatives, felt able to support each other in putting a border down the Irish Sea. Every single member of Parliament, if they believed in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, would have resigned their party membership at that point. So I would definitely stand up for what I believe in ahead of party principles.
Can you all hear me? Yeah. Perfect. So as a politician, you can't please everyone all of the time. I think you'll see that if you look at my Facebook comments. I'm God to some people, I'm the devil to others. But we have forums where you're able to raise concerns. So you've got the parliamentary Labour Party meetings where you hash it out in front, and I will do my utmost to make sure that anything that is Wellingborough related, Wellingborough Rushton related, Farndon, Urchester, Irvine, Chelmsford, Hind Ferris, and actually I'm speaking on your behalf and making sure you're raising it through political channels. Very much.
Level of party discipline is understandable and reasonable. You're elected on a certain platform. You're kind of obliged to vote through what is on your party manifesto. If you don't like what's in your party manifesto, for the most part, why are you standing on it? But I think it's important where situations inevitably develop during Parliament, where the issues crop up, where you've got to be independent-minded, not just for your constituency, but the country and globally. One of the big ones was the Iran War, where frankly, we could have done with a lot more independent-minded people, rather than from both parties, so the party line went behind things like that. So, in answer to the question, I don't think it's really a yes/no question, but yes, I would speak constituency. The Green Party doesn't have a witness system in place. Obviously, we only had one, and they recently had four. And then, yeah, you can vote on your conscience in the Green Party. Again, I think there has to be some party discipline, otherwise, what's the point of it as well?
Question 3 comes from Wellingborough Eco Group. The climate emergency is already having major impacts across the UK and in our community. What will you do as our MP to help the people and businesses of Wellingborough start to cut their CO2 emissions and to realise the many benefits and opportunities when they start to transition to more sustainable ways of living and working? Stop.
We in the Green Party obviously think climate emergency is the highest priority. I agree with the premise of the question. Sadly, we're already in a stage of mitigating its impacts. Clear cut examples of that in this country, we've seen 200% increase in vineyards in the south of England in the last 20 years. It's wonderful for UK wine producers, but problematic for things like biodiversity, crop stress, food security, water scarcity, and so on. I mean, all of the major parties seem to be peddling a false economy on the climate emergency. They've scaled back their plans on the basis of being too costly. As one example, if we retrofitted our homes years ago, we have more energy efficient homes today, cheaper bills, and of course, warmer homes. And it would have saved us more in the long run. So we need to start doing that now. It's a win-win. As well as bringing down bills, mitigating climate change, there's also the possibility of creating well-paid jobs. So the climate emergency is the utmost importance. And essentially, it's about investing now to save on the costs in the future. Otherwise, it's going to spiral out of control and cost us all more. Just have a look at the amount of flooding and so forth that's going on. It's just going to add up. Dealing with the mitigating circumstances of climate change is going to end up more costly.
Thank you very much. We are where we are with the economy, and the Labour Party sees growth in this area and making sure that we have economic growth. We want to invest 28 billion a year by the end of the 10-year parliament by setting up Great British Energy, which is a state-backed company. It's not nationalisation, it's a state-backed company that will invest in green technologies. Actually, here in East Midlands, we want to bring an extra 13,000 jobs through the green economy, and that's thanks to things like state institutions like primary schools and secondary schools that are still owned by the local authority, like Croydon's down the road, able to re-insulate their roofs, make sure that their windows are glazed, and that will bring loads of jobs to the area as well. We also want to have grants for individuals as well to make sure that incomes are lower, as we see that security and energy security is actually a really big problem that we've been facing through global wars that have pushed the price of gas and electricity up as well. So it's looking at the economy, looking how we grow the economy through making sure that we have green policies that are pragmatic, that we can invest in, and that won't cost us just hard on.
Maybe speak really into it.
Before I ask that question, Jen, can you just confirm one thing for me? You said that you intend to spend £28 billion a year. So what does that mean? Okay, so you don't know how much you're going to be spending extra.
We're going to spend 28 billion a year for that national economy. I'll say that for everyone else. Can you all hear me again? So we will be spending 28 billion in law by the end of the 10-year parliament. We need to make sure that we are ramping up our spending in line with what we've been able to invest.
Okay, here's my answer. The United Kingdom produces less than 1% of the carbon emissions of the globe. As a polluter, we are actually very good by comparison to most people. And the one-size-fits-all drive towards net zero in 2050 is having a more dramatic effect economically on the United Kingdom. Because for us to get down to the level that they wish us to get to by 2030 and 2035 is much more challenging, because we're already pretty damn good. And the ideological pursuit of net zero ahead of the economy, by the Treasury's own estimates, is going to cost 1.4 trillion. And if the Labour Party starts, that works out at about £50 billion per annum. That's pretty much what you take in corporation tax in this media going towards the green agenda. If you add another 28 billion on top of that, which Labour wants to spend, that is 78 billion a year trying to decarbonise this country, which is already reasonably good. And what we've done in the pursuit of net zero is to turn our backs on abundantly available, cheap natural gas in the North Sea. And we've got the idiotic position now where, because we can't meet our own energy needs, we're having to import liquefied natural gas from the United States that has been created through the fracking process. And the renewables can never, ever provide the energy that this country needs in order to sustain itself. We are driving the economy through the floor as a result of net zero, and we are burdening the British people with more and more cost. Yes, we want the environment to be safe, but not with net zero.
You added that to per annum.
No, she said 28 billion per annum by the end of the 10-year period. Jen.
Years is 2.8k.
No, she didn't say that. Jen, what did you say?
It's 52.
She said she would wrap it up to 28 billion per annum. Well, so you need to listen.
We may not agree with what the candidates are saying. We may not agree with their figures.
I
But
clarify.
listen to what they're saying. If you want to speak to them afterwards or get in touch with them, please do. We're here to listen to the different candidates and to hear what they're saying. Okay. Thank you very much.
Jeremy, you're
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to keep it short, folks, because I think the question is posed more on the other people on the panel talk facts, figures, numbers. Broadly speaking, obviously, we totally agree. We do need to recycle. We do need to meet our targets. So I'm not going to expand on that, but just to say, for us, one of our unique policies is we want to back local farmers to farm again. And we would also, our suggestion is with that, is that we subsidise, we help them, but they do give over their land so we can actually start growing many more trees, which will obviously help absorb the carbon. So I'm going to keep it brief because a lot has been said on that. And, so that's me. Thank you.
Okay, full question. Disabled people and families have been badly hit over the past 14 years, with many falling into poverty, others losing their lives. What would you do to make financial support to help disabled people fairer and easier to access, and to help disabled people fully participate and contribute in our society through paid work?
Okay, thank you. Well, this is a subject that really is quite close to me. I have a son who suffers with epilepsy, and as a result, does struggle to, for obvious reasons, hold out. Well, it's the same thing. He'll go for an interview, he'll try to get a job. He has to state about his epilepsy, and funnily enough, he doesn't get the second interview. This also has got a knock-on effect for disabled people, not only obviously that they're challenged with their disabilities, but it can also lead, like in my son's case, to depression, which is counterproductive. So I will be fully behind supporting disabled people and people with mental issues to access all areas. I mean, it's quite surprising as well. My mother-in-law has recently had to start using a wheelchair and getting around and just realising that access in some places is near on impossible. So there's much more we can do. And I could say, if I was elected as your candidate, I would have those things at heart, and I would, champion them for us in this local area. Thank you.
The Reform UK, we believe fundamentally in equal opportunities for everyone, not equal outcomes, but equal opportunities. And too much of government policy has been driven towards equal outcomes. And in equal opportunities, obviously, disabled people have to have the ability, as much as is humanly possible, given whatever their respective disability is, to apply for jobs, gain jobs, hold down those jobs, and earn a fair wage doing those jobs. And there are two principal factors which I think need to be borne in mind. The first is we can do a lot more for disabled people if we have a vibrant economy. It's vital. A vibrant, growing economy underpins everything, which is, I don't want to bang on about net zero or high taxation, state intervention, and all of that. But if you're in a very highly regulated, highly taxed environment where energy is very expensive, you can't have a viable economy. You therefore will not have the money available in order to support disabled people. That's the first thing. The second thing is we are living in an age of technology, which is terrific. And we need to encourage more investment in technology. Through technology, a lot of the disabilities and impediments that people face when they have got disabilities can be overcome. And prosperity combined with technology, research, development, all of which requires a holistically viable and vibrant economy is the answer.
Thank you. This is a really, really important issue. And as I have been speaking to people on the doors and going and working with local disability action groups, so it's coming up time and time again. I need to speak up. Sorry. So there are things that are coming up time and time again. So part of the Labour Party manifesto is to review the work capability assessments. That's for hampering people that are disabled, maybe getting their SIV and getting universal credit. So we're putting a review in place. But also making sure that the NHS waiting lists are cut. A lot of people are waiting for doctors' notes and doctors' letters so that they can go through a work capability assessment. So we have a pledge to make sure that we cut those late waiting lists. We also want to get people back into work and meaningful work, and to do that, we need to make sure that people are skilled. We also need to make sure that the work that we're offering them is available and for their skill set as well. Part of our whole packages is that we want to have community mental health hubs, which means that if people are out of work or are stable, they actually have the access that they need for community mental health hubs, so they're able to get themselves into a mental health space where they can go and access them into full participants in society. We also have, we want to launch a disability pay gap. So a bit like the gender pay gap, we want to make sure that companies that are employing disabled people are paying as what they're worth, so the disability pay gap as well. And I've been working
Three parts and a range of policies, and the flagship policy for quite a long time has been the idea of the universal basic income. We have a myriad at the moment of benefits and so forth, which are means tested, bureaucratic and complicated. Universal basic income has been tested elsewhere in the world. Trials are really positive. Because money in the pockets of people bad and needed, they spend it out in the economy. Beyond that, we're reviewing a ways of personal independence payment, products all allowed to house, ensure they have needs. It's also important around accessible employment, promoting inclusive workplaces, giving grants to businesses and making necessary adjustments, and ensuring all recruitment processes are fully accessible. Support services are vital as well, helping disabled people find and maintain suitable employment. Housing infrastructure, ensuring that housing and public infrastructure are accessible for all. For years that has improved a lot. There's more that can be done. Also, stricter accessibility standards for new buildings, for example. So, the Green Party has a range of policies here to make life easier and more fulfilled for disabled people.
The fifth question is from John Gilead. Kettering Energy Park is a major project currently in the planning stage where massive warehouses will be built between Findon and Burton Latimer. This development would have major effects on the residents of Findon. In my opinion, Northamptonshire has sufficient warehouses. Will you oppose the building of Kettering Energy Park? And if you think it should go ahead, please explain why it is needed.
So Kettering Energy Park, I have met with the key campaigners from the Landscape Not Industrial Estate campaign. And when they outlined all of the reasons why they were against it, I asked for them to send me through the traffic management plan that they had A, received when the initial planning application went in, and B, what they had also analysed with an independent analysis. I was supposed to be meeting with the developers today to put those concerns ahead, but unfortunately the general election has got in the way and they are hedging their bets as well. So at some point, hopefully, if I am your MP, I will be meeting with the developers to show them mitigating transport plans that have been put into effect by the campaigners, but also I want to raise the concerns that have already been raised to me through funding. But this is a business development, and I am not in the. I'm not going to be telling a private company what they can or can't do with business. If they think that there is a business case for it, it is up to them to waste their money if there isn't. So what I will be doing is taking the concerns from residents and making sure that the developers are amply clear about what the residents can finding want, which is traffic management, which is making sure that the roads are well paved, but it's also making sure that there aren't the high patients highways going through the town as well.
We in the North Green Party have long opposed these plans. There's a range of issues with it. One thing is it's on agricultural land. It's not prime agricultural land, but it is established agricultural land, which implies the local Weetabix factory. They haven't outlined as well various issues, how warehousing, will it just be funded? It seems like greenwash, essentially. It isn't going to be funded by renewables. Yeah, there was a long, extensive objection put in by the North Green Party. Anyone wants the details of that, I can send them to them. But yes, I mean, straightforward answer, as was implied in the question, does Northamptonshire have enough warehousing? Yes, it does. I think we need to put that over a very high bar. They're going to use established agricultural land for a project like this, and I don't think we can start bar. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would conduct a review. But first of all, the predisposition would be to welcome business to the constituency, obviously, to promote business in the constituency. But what I would like to review is whether or not there are brownfield sites that could equally accommodate this development, where there are existing sheds that could be redeployed in order to give effect to the business needs of these operators. Just one thing I want to say, by the way, the carbon emissions of building a new building, just the process of building a new building, is the equivalent of between 30 and 50 years worth of carbon emissions on repurposing a building, which is why it's so important to repurpose not just warehouses, but also properties that already exist in town centres and so on, rather than tearing up green fields. I completely agree that we should be protecting our green fields as much as possible. I also agree with Jed that we should be looking at the highway implications. But I would like to assess whether, I wouldn't want to turn my back on business. I'd like to welcome business as much as possible, but see if there's a way of accommodating them in a way that's more ecologically and environmentally friendly.
And again, I'll get straight to the point. I definitely would propose it. I do think on more than one level, that people find, and you know, I've been on the doorstep, got feedback from them. They've come up with their reasons. It goes against the SPP's policy of farming as well. One thing I mentioned earlier, we've got agricultural land. We want to get Northamptonshire farming again on there. We do want to support farmers. And do we need any more warehouses? No, definitely not. And you know, it's all very well having warehouses full of stuff that's made abroad and is sitting in it. We want to encourage local industry and support it on all the many estates we have around Wellingborough. But we want to start producing, getting those businesses to produce and make real things that we can sell abroad to help grow the economy. And that's the way that we can do it. I mean, our import-export is, I mean, I don't know, I haven't got the exact figures. I'm not going to blind you with figures, but let's face it, we do not export enough. So for that reason, I'm against it. I think it's the wrong business for the area. If there is going to be a business there, and don't forget, this is pretty large. I've been told it's the size of 550 football pitches or whatever. So we're talking a big development here. If we were going to develop that, I would want to see businesses on it that are production businesses that make something that we can sell abroad and, as I say, improve and build our identity.
See where the candidates stand on that. How does, question 6 is, how does your party intend to grow the economy if you are not prepared to build closer ties with our European neighbours? Please explain your plan. Start with Ben.
Great. Well, I mean, the European model of business is fundamentally flawed. It's a highly interventionist, highly taxed principle of business. That's what the European model is. It's essentially socialist. And what we need to do in the United Kingdom is take advantage of Brexit freedoms that we should have done, which is to deregulate, to go back to a more flexible, permissive Anglo-Saxon way of doing business. And the great shame about the 2 treaties that Boris Johnson signed with the European Union, not that it's an extreme hard Brexit as people describe it, actually that we didn't get Brexit. We've hitched ourselves to the European Union in matters of state aid law, environmental law, including net zero. So now that's baked into international law, competition law, employment law. All these areas need to be made to fit the UK's needs, not the European Union's needs. And if you look at the economy in Europe, it is absolutely tanking at the moment. People keep talking about the difficulties we're facing. Germany's economy is facing an existential crisis. What we need to do, and what Reform UK will do, is look at what our needs are in the United Kingdom and make policies for our needs, including all the reductions in taxes, which I so wholeheartedly recommend to you in our contract with the people. Please read it on our website, and the deregulation that we propose.
I concur with what Ben says there. The SDP were one of the few parties that actually believed in Brexit and stood for Brexit. And I do think it's about time we started sort of pulling those levers we've got and getting this country back on its feet. I did mention it, funny enough, at the end when I was talking about farming. We really do need to start getting production business going in this country again. I mean, local people will remember that this area was built on the shoe train, and that actually, it gave jobs to thousands of people in the county, and also the spin-off businesses from that. We had all the engineering businesses, all those other businesses. Successive governments, whether they be Labour or Conservative, seem to have ditched the idea that we should have industry in this country. And it's a real shame, because obviously it makes us richer as a country. That gives us more money to spend on all the things we've talked about tonight. So, I think it's really important. The SDP will get behind business, but certain businesses that we, as I say, we actually produce something and we are selling it, and so making our country richer. It just makes sense, really. And that's what we're all about, common sense, the common good in this country.
So across Wellingborough, I know the businesses, whether that's the wine chateau on the high street, whether that's possibly Composites or the state. And by the way, it's the number 1 manufacturer of luxury cars. It's crazy that we have McLarens and Porsches made here in Wellingborough, but we've also got businesses like you actually really need to focus on Europe and be able to trade across the board. That being made in Wellingborough, we can actually ship them to Germany, the this is not the application for everyone would invest in the UK. We want to know that.
This is the question, because this obsession with economic growth, above all, is what's destroying the planet and indeed the basis of everything. Exponential economic growth on the planet, finite resources, is obviously not sustainable. And I think the other aspect is, it's clear in the global north, richer countries, that economic growth in reality doesn't have that much impact on well-being. And this kind of stands to reason, like, was your world rocked by the latest smartphone upgrade? Was your world rocked by increasing your TV size? Whereas in the global south, economic growth is real in your life. So the Green Party was scratching big growth as a measure of progress because it's, I think, irrelevant in the oil wealth countries. On the question of UK-EU relations, I think essentially the matter is settled. I don't think if it was a divorce, it was a particularly domestic divorce, and then the party who initiated the divorce wanted to go back and try to get something out of it. I don't think it's going to go down very well. It kind of misses out what's been happening in the EU, the direction the EU has been going. It's going in a very populist right direction. It's going in a very protectionist direction. I don't think they're going to want competition. Labour want the new veterinary deal with the EU. I think that'll go. The EU will essentially say, yes, we'll put that into committee and we'll see you in about 10 years. It's not, I think that has settled the chance to impact. The chance to impact on Brexit between 2019, 2016 and 2019. And we missed that chance to messing around. Parliament essentially missed the chance to influence it. So that's why we end up with what we end up with.
Question 7. An NHS urgent care centre has been mentioned many times by our elected representatives over the past 20 years, but nothing has happened about it. Please explain whether you think Wellingborough should have an urgent care centre, and if so, what you intend to do to make it happen.
Thank you very much. So yes, as your sitting MP and now open candidate, an urgent care centre at Icebrook is very definitely needed. As we take the opportunity as a general election comes, we might as well use it to make sure that we're out on doors and we get signatures for a petition to an urgent care centre. So should I be your MP, then one of the first things I will do once I'm re-sworn in again is to deliver this petition. We've got almost 1,000 signatures now as we've been out on doors. If you'd like to sign it, I'm sure we have some in the car park and I'm more than happy for you to sign it as well. An urgent care centre is very definitely needed here. We are the largest constituency within Southamptonshire and we do not have an urgent medical centre here. People have to go to Northampton, Cornwall, Kettering, and if you're at the bottom of Rushden, you might even go to Bedford, which means you're going out of the borough and out of services. So yes, we definitely do need an urgent care centre. The reason I'm advocating for an urgent care centre over an A&E centre is because an urgent care centre is combined industries and an A&E centre means that it will be taken as priority. So what we're asking for is an urgent care centre, and what I'm asking for is for the government to recognise that there's a health crisis here and that the ICB needs extra budget to make that urgent care centre a necessity. Thank you very much.
This is the perfect example about how much the debate has transformed in the last few years. At the 2019 general election, you'll remember the Tories were promising 14 hospitals. Mr. Bowen was heavily implying that Wellingborough or somewhere nearby was going to be in the mix for that. Now we know later on it's turned out that the new hospitals includes upgrades, and so the talk now is upgrading better in general. So I think this is a classic case where we've got to get the investment that we need. Can't be sort of skirting around the edges. the last few years should have been probably notorious to account on this. We're reporting hospitals. Unfortunately, Labour have gone down the road of saying, sounding very much like George Osborne in 2010, can't do much because there's no money there. Actually, there's an enormous amount of wealth in our country. The last half century, we've seen enormous inequality grow. It's more like less like trickle down economics, more like bigger up economics. An enormous amount of wealth at the top of society. The Green Party's policy to fund the NHS, an enormous package, is a 1% wealth tax on assets above 10 million. Now, we've got to remember net return on assets in this country is about 3 or 4%. So we're not actually dragging the very richest down. What we're saying is that they'll get richer a bit slower and they'll be able to contribute to the common weal of the country, which we desperately need, not just regards to NHS. You see it in terms of infrastructure everywhere. That's why Jenny's ended up, unfortunately, with a pothole, which is told out time and time again. There's also been issues with our infrastructure. It's investment ultimately. And that's why the Green Party are asking for a redistribution of wealth to get that done.
Just to reiterate, if you have a vibrant economy and the government finances in good shape, you can do a lot more than you would otherwise be able to do. And of course, we don't have a vibrant economy, in part because of all the policies that we're pursuing that we've described before. So Reform UK would cut back immigration, that would let wages rise. And what we would tilt towards is ensuring that frontline staff in the NHS, not just for the creation of an emergency A&E or an urgent centre, but generally frontline staff in the NHS were promoted into work. And the policies that we've got for that are a reduction, a complete forgiveness of the basic rate of tax for all frontline staff in the NHS for 3 years while we bring the waiting list down, a removal of the cap for the training of medics and for the training of medics, nurses and doctors at university, for the forgiveness of student debt if having trained as a medic, they work in the NHS for at least up to 10 years. And if we can stop the outflow, by the way, 15 to 20,000 doctors leave the UK each year because the salaries paid here are much lower than what they can get in Australia and Canada, where their qualifications can easily be used. They're leaving, and what we need to do is ensure that we have a vibrant economy here, taxes are low enough to retain those people and bring more people into frontline staff. Then we can do the A&E, we can do everything else that we wish to do with the NHS.
As I said at the start of my introduction, I was actually born at Inesbrook Hospital in 1963. Various family members have spent time there. A friend of mine recently came out of there to be rehabilitated after a long illness. So they do fantastic work there. And let's face it, the area deserves better. We've got 100,000 people in this constituency, and they really do deserve a better hospital and better services. So yes, I'm fully behind that, and I will do my utmost to make sure that happens. But what I did want to say on this whole system, frankly, I sit at home like you guys, but I kind of get a little bit fed up with the various political parties using this as a political football. Figures here, so many billion here. Let's face it, you know, we really, I think, need to have a complete change of this. I think we should take the politics out of the NHS completely. I actually also think that we should go to the nation and we should say, we should have a referendum and say just what kind of national health service would you like? So do we have it as, you know, intended, free at point? Do we have a hybrid version of that? Or do we allow some of it to go private? Being a social democrat, I believe in you all having a say in things. And I think we should establish that first. And then further think what we should do is rather than, you know, various political parties getting in for say 4 or 5 years, promising the earth, not being able to deliver it, we should set up a permanent, almost like a semi-government that actually is represented by all the parties that are in there, and also as well have specialists within it, and they decide and make a decision on how much they need for the budget. It's the only way. We've got to stop this political football of the NHS, and we've got to get on with what really needs doing and to rebuild it and make it fit for the purpose for us nationally as well as locally. Thank you.
This next question, I'd like to add some context to, because the stepdad of this young lad is in the audience, and we laid the young lad to rest on Saturday. Sadly, very recently, a young man who lived locally to here tragically lost his life on the river Wellingborough. It's easy for people and authorities to become complacent about waterway safety. What would you do to help improve safety across all waterways in the town to prevent further tragedies from happening to other families like this one?
Well, I'm obviously really, really desperately sorry to hear that. And it is such a shame. I mean, we do have some wonderful, waterways and the river down around here. And I personally enjoy it myself. I'm a canoeist, a fisherman, but I mean, what has happened is absolutely tragic. I mean, there's lots you can do. I mean, I think, there are points where I know people do tend to, I mean, in High Paris, for argument's sake, we have a lock. And I know that you do get gatherings of youth and that down there, and they're swimming and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, people can't have their eyes everywhere, but I think that really it probably should start in schools by, us actually getting the message out to people that, you get, whether you're a good swimmer, a non-swimmer, whatever, the river and the deep waters can actually be, I know this would be the canoeists, they can actually be, whether you're a good swimmer or not, they are very, very hazardous, with whirlpools, stuff like that. I think it's just about educating people, getting the message out there. I mean, that sadly is all we can do. I mean, I'm very, very sorry. I didn't know this question was coming, and I don't know the background as to how and why this happened, but I can only offer my sincere condolences. And just, as I say, hope we can just, educate people, maybe through the school system, etc. And maybe we could, the councils could send out a reminder, to us all about that. So sorry to hear. That's what I've got to say. Thank you.
Reiterate my condolences. I mean, that's awful for someone to lose their life, particularly a young person in those circumstances. Of course, there are things we can do. Education is clearly at the heart of it. My experience is that most people don't have the stats to hand, but most people who get into difficulty in rivers are in difficulty because they went for a swim. It's because they end up in the river inadvertently. And so I think a lot of hedgerow management is required. I know that sounds kind of simple, but you need to know where the river starts and where the land ends. And often that's not clear because of the way, hedgerows grow. And I know that from my own fishing experience. I've slipped into many rivers inadvertently. And again, if the district council and the borough council has money, it's rich, if we're economically prosperous, we can cut back hedgerows, we can put in signs at dangerous points, and we can warn people about the difficulties that they might face if they get stuck. The difficulty, and I'm going to digress slightly, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's terribly hard to drive around Wellingborough and Rushton because you've got hedgerows that are completely out of control on roundabouts and on junctions. And that is a symptom of a district council that have effectively run out of money. And we need to be, it all comes back to it, we need to be a prosperous economy.
When I met the family at the Queensway Festival, I was committed to working with the family to ensure river can take so local authorities and fundraise for larger bring along popular swimming
Papers on this and much about the cars. I'd also include the point about investment in our waterways and safety wise. Green Party wants to get our waterways back into public ownership. We just don't think they're well maintained enough. Again, pollution is mentioned. And again, the water companies have taken on massive debts. They've paid out enormous amounts in dividends. And we're just not getting the investment that we need in safety, everything in terms of improving our waterways. So yeah, that would be a key point for us, how we will improve it. We've got to invest in things, and like a lot of things, safety is going to run down. So that would be the Green Party function of that.
Thank you. And our next question comes from Wendy Steele. Should you be elected, what might be done to help reduce the increasing number of rough sleepers that we find in Wellingborough, the related high incidence of addiction and mental illness, and the lack of safe and affordable accommodation and shelter in our area?
A lot of this comes back to housing affordability. We've seen rents just go through the roof, and 14 years of the Tories, benefits of the black line, so people get themselves into trouble, then they're on the streets, and then it's a struggle. So one of our big things is a housing first model, which prioritises providing permanent housing to people. I mean, it seems an obvious solution, you know, the chance to give people housing, get a chance to, permanent residents. We've also got our universal credit scheme here would allow people to get themselves back on their feet. So it's about tackling the root causes of homelessness. Also, alongside this, strengthening tenants' rights, ending no-fault evictions, and then, as we've said, it'll also be around local authority support, increasing funding to local councils, their initiatives. It works in other countries. If you put housing first, funny enough, people get back on their feet and they're given the opportunity to do so. With this country, unfortunately, it seems to me we have such an issue with housing that people slip through the cracks, bureaucratic hoops you have to jump through. It's very difficult to get yourself out of that situation.
30 seconds.
This is a problem that's faced nationally, but it's a symptom of when the state cuts back. I used to work with the Salvation Army, and one of my first projects was a £1.2 million homeless shelter rebuild project in East London. And I know from experience that actually you need a wraparound service. So you need to be able to get people back into work, you need to be able to sever people with addictions that they're holding, and you need to be able to make sure that they're educated on their own personal circumstances. So we did an incredible project called Recycles, which is where we're taught people how to fix funds while creating homes out of shipping containers, and it would be on program that was a rehabilitation service as well. What we want to do nationally here is we want to make sure that we have a real world community mental health hubs. A lot of homelessness stems is a symptom of people that are suffering with severe mental health and depression and anxiety. Making sure that mental health is at the forefront of our NHS, and making sure that people get the help that they need to make sure that they're back on track to work. do a lot more on back to work programs to make sure that people are well skilled and able to enter the future jobs. And we also quite often need field housing. None of this you can't really do enough housing.
So one of the things I did during by-election was visit the Daylight Centre, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. The Daylight Centre provides a fantastic service for those who are sleeping rough and are effectively homeless. But one thing I learned, which is absolutely horrifying me, was that in order to gain government grants, if you are a rough sleeper, you're prohibited, or if you do sleep, find a place to sleep, you may lose your right to those grants. You're not prohibited from finding a place to sleep, but you're prejudiced against finding a place, a roof over your head for the odd night, because it could undermine your ability to get those grants. That's a law that clearly needs to be reversed. The other thing that I learned, which is absolutely staggering, is that the Daylight Centre spends £636. That's all it can afford. It does a great job. But £636 per head, per rough sleeper, per year. And we are spending £50,000 per head, per annum, for every illegal migrant that enters the country. They come in, they're put in a 4-star hotel, they're free to come and go as they please. They get medical treatment, dental care, cash in their pockets, iPads, translators. It's an absolute affront to the British people that we look after those who enter the country illegally, over and above and to the detriment of our own. And it's not just homeless people that are prejudiced against, our veterans have had our backs turned on them. And then lastly, it comes back to the economy again. It's all about the economy. If we have a vibrant economy and the government is rich, we can do what we need to do to save our own.
The reason that people become homeless can be quite varied, but I think it normally does have one major bearing. A lot of it is to do with mental health. I seem to remember the Tories promising us they were going to tackle mental health and make it a priority. That doesn't seem to have happened. Again, I can attest to that. I have a son that does suffer with mental health issues, and practically him trying to get an appointment to see anybody that's going to make any real difference is basically non-existent. You know, he's been waiting forever. I mean, he does get a chance to get a little bit of counselling for voluntary workers, but actually getting the real help that he needs, it's non-existent. Luckily, he's got the support of a family, and we look after him, but not everybody's so lucky. And, you know, it's so easy to see where this could go. It does lead me though to one thing, I think, and, you know, drugs was mentioned, addictions and things like that. I mean, that can come about as a result of that, it can, depression, etc. But, you know, sometimes people get involved with drugs recreationally, and, you know, that can in itself, that addiction can take them on a downward spiral. So we do have to look at it carefully. One of the things the SDP hold close to its heart is, and, you know, it doesn't seem to get talked about now, and that is family values. And it's something we really believe in, the way you bring your children up. We do feel it's better in a home where there's two parents there, and to that end, we were offering tax breaks for married couples. So I do think, you know, something can be learned from that as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This question is from Elaine Fowler. Will you commit to pressing for fair and fast compensation in the next Parliament if you're elected? Thousands of waspy women born in the 1950s, affected with when successive governments failed to notify us of changes to the state pension age, plunging many into poverty. So will you commit to compensation?
Yes, definitely I would. I think that whole affair is just absolutely reprehensible. And, you know, I can give another example to do with a family. It's a slightly different subject, but it's the same thing. It's government related. One of my sons, 3 or 4 years ago now, was viciously attacked and nearly lost his life. Luckily, the police apprehended the perpetrator. He went to court and he was jailed. And the Criminal Injuries Board, the person involved that actually perpetrated it was halfway through his prison sentence before my son got anything from the Criminal Injuries Board for this attack. So although it's not the same thing, the idea of that, there is obviously an issue with the government dragging the news over this and many other things. Let's not get on to the post office thing either as well. But yes, my answer to that question is yes, I would fully support that.
The reason the government raised the pension age is because the government's out of cash. And it's yet another symptom of a broken economy. And I know I keep coming back to the economy, forgive me for that, but actually that's a critical component of our welfare. Obviously, it's a critical component of our welfare. I completely understand the anger of the WASPy women who were brought up with a social contract that promised them a certain retirement age. And when they got to that point, the government changed the rules without their agreement. And it's not the first time the government's done it. Successive governments have changed agreements without people having a say in what it is that they're changing, including changing tax rates, for example, that they promised they wouldn't change. Labour Party promised not to increase income tax. We'll see how that plays out in the next 5 years, assuming they come into government, which I imagine they will. But I support wholeheartedly the principle that a social contract made by the state with the people needs to be honoured, because if you cannot rely on the state fulfilling its promises, you can't go forward with self-confidence as a British citizen. So I would support the case for the WASPs. I think there's a court case going through the High Court at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see how that is adjudicated.
The WASPy Women campaign in local Northamptonshire is very, very well organised. So much so that I think I've already emailed quite a few people about it. We are committed to implementing the majority of the recommendations, and we are committed that any future changes to pensions will have to be communicated well in advance. We understand that as a Labour Party nationally, it has affected so many people, and that it's been a heartache and equal equality, which is why we are also waiting for the High Court review. We are also making sure that we the majority of the recommendations to these as well.
On this is Green Party policy to compensate WASPy women on this case. And I think what's also key here is that with the introduction of the citizens' pension, so you don't have people slipping through the net in this way. At the moment, you have a contribution scheme. Many women don't get a full state pension or a reduced state pension. Many of these people have taken time out of work to care for families, children. This is before you can top up on contributions. So we want to see that resolved so that everyone gets a decent retirement. This point about getting women onto economic growth, the obsession with economic growth, to the extent we've had it over the last half century, it's overwhelmingly been poorly distributed towards the top end. So again, you wouldn't have to gather these enormous patronisers and constantly sort of rationing out things. If we had a more rational economic system, the proper redistribution of wealth. The country has enormous wealth, frankly. A lot of it already recorded overseas, plenty of it still here. And the Green Party wants to actually redistribute wealth. I know it's an unfashionable thing these days, with a few parties actually saying it. But I think that's what we can do, and that will resolve this issue of pensions. We could then afford to have a compensation for the WASPy women.
At this point, Ben Habib is going to leave us his 7 words. And thank you. Thanks for attending. Let's on, if that's okay with you. We've got 2 scripted questions left. And then if anyone has got a burning question, we'd really love to invite you to give it. 11. Wellingborough has an above average number of low-skilled, low-paying jobs. What will you do locally as our MP to work to enable many, many more high-skilled, higher-paid jobs to be created in our area without destroying our natural environment and heritage at the same time?
Well, I did touch on this slightly before. You do definitely, that is what we definitely need. We need to get serious about industry, high skilled jobs. I know a lot of that. I won't bore you with our manifesto, you'll read it yourselves, but we also would be build a company nationally to take advantage of the green technology, etc. Those, yes, that's one part of it, but there's all kinds of other traditional businesses and manufacturing jobs that we just decided, or say we just decided, past governments have decided that well, we just don't want to do them anymore. Hence, going back to my example of the shoe trade, I mean, the reason that will finish was not because of the shoe factors decided we had enough. It's just successive governments really didn't back them, didn't make it or help to make it affordable for them to make their products export them. So we've got to get serious about it again, and we've got to change. I do believe we've got to start building businesses. I know that the hot topic is green industries, and I know Labour made a big thing about that, and which is fair enough. We do agree with that. But for instance, things have to get made. Looking at my phone now, the case is metal. Where was that made? And more than likely abroad, more than likely in China. Why can't we build them here? And all those jobs, all those manufacturing industries, are very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We as the Labour Party have been down breaking barriers to opportunity. So that includes things like lifelong learning loans, making sure that it's easy to go back to skills colleges, technical colleges and university. We also want to reevaluate the apprenticeship levy, making it easier for large corporations like Scott Bader here and GMK Logistics to make sure that they are also using their apprenticeship levy to train and upskill their workforce. We also want to reevaluate the way that schools are evaluated and analysed. We want to make sure that not only the Ofsted, but to make sure that schools are recorded and put against whether they employ people to the local area. So it's not just about how many children they get into universities, but it's how many children go on to technical colleges, as well as how many children go on to apprenticeships. We want to work, I personally here at local level, want to work with Tresham and Marlborough College to all of our sixth forms. I've been doing a tour of all sixth forms to help children get into politics and to help make them more politically engaged, but also let them know about what opportunities there are in my office should I become the MP. We also have a new deal for work, which ends by hire. It also helps people to be upskilled, and we also want to make sure that we now class people as workers in this very 0 hours contract. Again, we want to make sure that people that aren't just doing a 0 hours contract are now reclassified as workers, so they gain the same benefits as people that are occupied.
Obviously, have a number of ideas in this area, and it's one area that James has been working on, which I commend in terms of promoting sustainable tourism. Sort of not sneering about Northamptonshire that we can't do tourism. Actually, I think we've got some really beautiful locations that we can do this, create jobs in tourism, conservation, heritage management. Beyond that, it's just three parts of big on local list, as you can imagine. We want to support small businesses and startups, provide incentives, grants, low interest loans, and so forth. So also the circular economy initiatives, promoting circular economy principles, recycling, repurposing. This can create jobs in these sort of areas. And also, obviously, we're quite big on lifelong learning. We want to sort of copy the Finnish model of education, which is free, lifelong learning, and gets great results. So yeah, there's a range of policies that we want to do to get the high school jobs.
you. So the last scripted question is from Mike Annabelle. He asks, if elected, would you make sure that single-sex services such as hospital accommodation and sports for women and girls are provided on the basis of sex, not self-identified gender and is subsidiary? And will you make sure that the findings of the CAS review on the treatment of gender questioning children are followed up?
Thank you. So as the Labour Party, we are committed to single-sex spaces. Things like sport actually be up to the sporting industry to make sure and to ensure that there is fair competition between competitors. But we really want to make sure that everyone is treated with respect and dignity. We don't want anyone to feel like there's space open for them.
I think on this issue, I was reading a poll yesterday where one issue that far too much about is issues like this, which really seem to be almost, fringe cultural stuff to encourage, fear about trans people. Trans people make up 0.5% of the population. Gender kind of colour, there's already protections in the Equality Act, the sporting bodies and so forth, which I agree with, because I don't think just suppressing testosterone and so forth is going to resolve that. Things like women's sport. But we need to be careful with this stuff. There seems to be almost a moral panic around it. It's getting to the stage where we're talking about fixing, changing rules. Anyone who doesn't fit a particular ideal is going to be in trouble with that. You're a woman who doesn't particularly fit a feminine ideal, or you're going to be sort of accused and turned about women's gender and so forth. That seems to me to be a bit odd. It just seems to be, as I say, it takes up a lot of bandwidth. Kind of think back and all the same sort of terminology used for gay and lesbian people in the past. A lot of fear around, indoctrinating children and so forth. I don't buy into that. I think it's a bit of a moral panic, and it really needs to be, the project needs to be toned down.
Thank you. Well, again, I'll keep it brief. My answer to it is yes and yes. But the caveat I would give, I think what everybody else has said, I wouldn't want any groups actually to feel that they're alienated or left out. Again, poignant to me as a father, my eldest son is gay and, has faced challenges because of that. I mean, he's a hairdresser. When he came out as gay, people actually stopped interviewing him for that reason. So I do understand, but on this particular question, my answer is yes and yes.
We're going to allow a bit of summing up time, just short of the 1 o'clock, so the candidates will have 2 minutes to sum up each. But we're going to open the floor up now. So please raise your hand if you've got a question that's maybe arisen or a subsidiary. There's a couple of people there.
Can I just make clear, if you're asking a question, you are asking it to all the candidates on the panel. Okay.
Julia in the green.
Use the microphone, please. I will, yes, but I'm
She's
very capable of being extremely loud. Right. At the end of November 2023, our current Prime Minister pledged to Philip Bliver that Spain would be in the ground by the spring of 2024 to improve hospital provision for Northampton. This is yet to happen. Are we ever going to see an improved hospital provision in this county?
Again, to what I said earlier about national health generally, I mean, yes, I mean, the Tories promised a lot, promised to build houses, that didn't happen. I know Labour have made some bold claims and, I mean, to be fair to them, given their opportunity, let's see. But, it goes back to that thing, we do need a different conversation and a grown-up conversation about how much money we need to spend and what we need to do. We do need a better national health service. And I would actually even go a step further and say, regarding national health, I think that if you ask most people, they will all say that if you know, and I find it a bit disingenuous that parties won't come out and admit it. I actually think the great British people, if you said, could you put your hand in your pocket and pay a bit more tax for a decent national health service, I'm sure they would. So that would be my suggestion to get things going on that front. We've got to face facts. You know, if we want to get hospitals built, we want to keep on, that's what we're going to have to do. So, yeah, I actually feel exactly, you know, we've got to be honest and say that if we're going to improve the national health system, I do think we have got to be prepared to invest. It's not the only thing we can do, but we have got to do it. And I think this is where the Tories are falling short. They're basically running out of money and they just can't keep their promises. Local authorities have run out of money. You can argue as to why maybe it's been run back. The fact of the matter is it's not been done. And we need, I think all the parties need a serious conversation between ourselves to actually get to the and come up with a national health service we can be proud of. It should not be political. It should just, it's a necessity we all need. Without our health, we have nothing. Okay.
Thank you. This has come up because there's a video circulating online that following the Labour Party is not committed to the capital rebuild of which is absolutely untrue. We have Green Greens and Residents have both given commitments that we have money to do the capital rebuild. I don't know how to stress this here. Yes, we do need but we do also
That's included supposedly one of the hospitals. So even they were quite liberal with the truth in the first place, I wouldn't think they're going to follow through on that. I wouldn't think it's going to will. I think on investment in hospitals, we need to level with people, but we're going to have to get it from somewhere. And the Green Party position is about buying all right. There's an enormous amount of wealth out of the country. We're asking the top riches, 1%, to contribute a bit more to the common weal. And then we can fund things like this, certainly new hospitals and all sorts of things that we need. I think people have to level with on that. It's kind of notorious for years and would say new hospitals and so forth, and it never comes to pass. So, yeah, they need to be held to account on these things.
Okay, so I think if we've probably got time for 2 more quick questions and quick answers, and then we'll have a 6-minute sum up. Yeah.
Can I ask the candidates just to do it for 1 minute?
Yeah, gentlemen.
Lady and a gentleman.
Observatory reports that migrants contribute more in national insurance and in income tax than they take out child benefits or tax credits. How do you intend to combat the misinformation that a small minority is responsible for the UK's financial problems?
We don't want to hear that question. No. Would you like to say it again? Perhaps standard speak. Sometimes.
Sorry, I said the Migrant Observatory reports that migrants contribute more in national insurance and income tax than they take out in child benefits or tax credits. How do you intend to combat this information that relates to small migrant minorities, the UK's financial problems?
very clear position on this. As you say, I think part of anyway, the point of one of the TV debates, migrants are much more likely to be sort of helping you, doing healthcare and NHS, and to be ahead of you in the queue. So we need to stop speculating in migrants. I think it's over the years, you know, they've been a younger demographic. So to turn around and blame them essentially for the lack of investment that we've made. That's what it seems to be. So I think, you know, Nigel Farage, one of the debates he talked about, you know, migration, you need to build a home every 2 minutes to accommodate. I mean, that's only 250,000 homes a year. I mean, once upon a time, we used to do that before Mrs. Thatcher. It can be done. We should stop scapegoating migrants. But there is a question over how many could be, but stop scapegoating.
Thank you. I think for us as a party, in fact, actually part of the question should be directed to is no longer here, unfortunately. But we need to make sure that as we're accommodating migrants to help into our NHS, to help build and be part of the economy, that we're also building the infrastructure to accommodate the country. We also need to be giving more people the national insurance numbers quicker so they can contribute to the economy earlier. At the moment, we have 52,000 on the backlog, which we just don't know. What I would want to see is a national insurance number given out quickly, and if they aren't able to give them national insurance for some of the various reasons, they're actually settling back to the same country. I think for us, we want to make sure that we have a good productive workforce, that we're growing the economy, and we're doing that with the helping migrants as well as with our population too.
Thank you. Well, I certainly wouldn't blame migrants for all our areas at all, although the SDP are for keeping immigration at a reasonable level. Our aim is to get it down. I know the Labour Party doesn't like really actually giving figures, but our figure that we're saying is we would like to get it down to a manageable amount of 50,000, and then see how we go with that. And for sure, I mean, on the local level, I said I've got businesses who worked in Wellingborough and the surrounding areas all my life, and you know, I've worked alongside you know, immigrants to this country, and you know, my own experience is a very positive one. I'm very hard working, very family oriented, so I certainly wouldn't. But you know, the thing is with immigration, we do have to not be afraid to talk. I do actually get fed up with people, you know, immediately start to talk about immigration. In parties like us, you know, the racism thing comes into it. It's just not true. You know, it's one on one table, one on the other. We do need a grown-up conversation about immigration. You know, it's not, you know, my idea about ideals, racism. It literally is about infrastructure. And so that's my only point on it, really. We do have to keep it in check. You know, we can't get to see a doctor at a local surgeries, and you know, things like that. I mean, you know, all of that is, you know, and again, please don't get me wrong. I mean, if it wasn't for immigration, I wouldn't have my life. And it's like that at the start. So I am in agreement with that. Sorry.
Okay, gentleman at the back.
Say to me to convince me that you're being an MP in my mind is a full-time job while you're elected. What could you say to me to convince me that that is the case in your mind? Because it strikes me, I'll be honest, I've been sitting here Googling all of it. Unfortunately, hoping this isn't here, but it strikes me that a lot of people have far bigger outside jobs. So how would you reconcile the fact that if you've got outside interests and other business commitments, that won't influence your viewpoint? Because obviously we've seen an awful lot in the last couple of years where people have been basically treating contracts to friends of friends of the old books network. So how would you reconcile external influences with your own personal views as an MP for this constituent?
Great question, sir. So are you going to be our MP first?
Yes, I know that. Well, I mean, for me personally, I'm sure you won't have that problem. I'm very, very much a working class person. I don't have massive business interests. And so, you know, for me, you don't have to worry about my eyes. If you Google me, you'll find that out. I am sort of, if I was an MP, I'd be on much more money than I actually earn now per annum. So I'd be very happy with that. Thank you very much. But one thing is for sure, for that money, I promise you, you get my heart and soul as a local resident, as someone that's lived in this area, was born in this area, raised a family in this area, and you know, my heart and soul is with you, and I will take that to Parliament for you. So thank you.
Having been an MP for 100 days, it's a full-time job, and I can't fathom how you'd have other interests on it. A bit like Jeremy said, actually, this is the most amount of money I've ever been on. And when I was working as a charity fundraiser, I was under the huge impression that people would, you know, throw themselves out of paying for my salary. They would run 26 miles for what I was able to do. And I think that kind of view into Parliament with me, and that actually it's not my money I'm spending, yours, and therefore I want to make sure that the taxpayers get the best out of the money. No other jobs from here.
Well, it's a full-time job. I think the real issue is what you described on the second jobs. Also, the revolving door where people leave ministry and then they go off and advise companies and so forth that they've been sort of meant to be regulating. So I think that's a massive issue. It should be a full-time job. Yeah, that's what I'm really saying.
I think the final question,
It'll be brief.
really brief answers. Thank you.
Since the end of the last war, we've had Labour governments and Tory governments, a continuous cycle of Labour and Tory governments, which I think is kept in place by the first past the post system. Do the candidates think it's time that we should have a different electoral system, i.e. PR, and what are their views? Thank you.
Well, you can expect to say that what the Green Party position is. We've been long-term supporters of optional representation. Just look at the polling at the moment. Green Party is on 7% to get 4 seats. Reform is on about 17%, and forecasting very few. I just think now, especially the class structure of our country has changed now. We've got different parties ultimately represent different interests. We've got more, it's more divided. So the old two-party system just doesn't work. The Green Party have other reforms as well around direct democracy, referendums and so forth, which I think we need as well. You need to be able to veto things sometimes that you don't like. So there's a whole host of democratic reforms that the Green Party support. The answer to the question is we support proportional representation.
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. There's many different types of PR. In fact, we've already had a referendum alternative vote. There's so many different types where you advocate SUV, list system, different level of representation. One of the things that I like about first past the post is that there is a direct link. We are, as MPs, we are directly elected by you to make sure that we represent this area. On most forms of PR, you'd have to have an entire integral constituency that's much larger, and you lose that direct democracy. You then have a list system where someone comes to you and say, housing issue, and I say, did you vote Labour? Oh no, well then go to your Green, go to your SUV, go to your Reform. Actually, first past the post gives you that direct link. The Labour Party is in favour of laws reform and democratic reform. Personally, I prefer a mixed member system where you have a partly elected through first past the post and then a partly elected Liberal system in second chamber. But I could bore you all day about election systems, and I think I've had time.
Thank you. Again, probably won't surprise you, being one of the smaller parties. I agree with Paul on this, with proportional representation. But I do think it's high time we did it. I mean, we're just not. I think a lot of us out there, and it's the thing that comes to me most, that people are just not bothering to vote anymore because they're sick and tired of the two parties on offer. You know, comments are outdated, don't understand that kind of thing. I mean, the only way, you know, if there was,
We're boring it out, I'm sorry about that.
yeah, where was I? Yeah, I mean, I do think as well, proportional representation would actually, it would actually ignite an interest in younger people. I feel more, you know, again, I hear from younger people. What's the point in voting? There's no one there that really represents me, you know, and I could take this to one extreme as well. I mean, we do hear a lot about the protests and the Stonehenge thing and stuff like that. Well, you know, maybe if young people actually felt that they had views and they could voice them and they stood a chance, at least of getting someone into Parliament, well, you know, instead of demonstrating, they might actually get their way behind it. That's my point. Thank you.
I'm really sorry, we've got no more time for questions, but that doesn't stop you approaching one of the candidates in a respectful manner if you have something to ask them. I'd like to thank you for attending this evening and thank you for listening and responding with respect and kindness, even when we disagree with one another. And I'm going to give the three candidates remaining 2 minutes just to sum up why they would like to be our next MP.
Very much. My sort of summing up would be re-emphasise what we made at the end on the art is that how has tactical voting been working out for people over the years? You keep voting for the things you don't want. I'm afraid don't be surprised if you get what you don't want. I think the enormous crisis we face as a country on a global level, we haven't really got time to be waiting around for tactical voting to slide until the window of a certain way. And I think people need to vote for what they actually want. If you like what the Green prospectus is, go for it. If you don't like it, don't vote for it. And you take a fairly straightforward view on that. So if you like what we have to say, please don't do tactical voting. We've been doing that in this country for a long, long time. It doesn't seem to, people seem very upset not getting things that they want. And so, you know, please vote for what you do want. Above all, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for participating. It's almost 9 o'clock, so I hope you have your dinners ready when you get home. Wonderful thing. It has been a privilege to be your MP for our holidays. It's been a privilege of a lifetime. The amount that I've been able to speak to, the amount of businesses that I've been able to help, the amount of casework that we've been able to get through. We've got boilers that haven't been able to get boilers. We've got people legal aid that have not been able to get legal aid, and we've been able to work with and for the community. I have been delighted to be your MP, and I have relished the opportunity to be back out on the door knock during this election. I have enjoyed coming to so many people's houses, making sure they sign my urgent care petition, which I will plug again, and please do sign it. And I have been delighted to work with so many people from the community. I will say it again, it has been a privilege of a lifetime, and I'm so thankful that you found your trust in me at the by-election. Now, to say that, we won this constituency as a Labour Party in 1997 with 187 votes. My year at school was 207 people. If we're looking at a similar swing as we are in 1997, and we are, if my entire school year didn't vote, we wouldn't get a Labour government, we wouldn't get a Labour rep. So I'm not taking any chances. I am not complacent. I'm not thinking that I'm going to walk this. I'm working hard, and for the 100 days that I was your MP, I was solely focused on delivering the pledges that you elected for, and I need to deliver those pledges.
Well, thank you for listening to what I've had to say tonight and probably learning a little bit more about the SDP party. As I said, I understand I'm a smaller party, but I do urge you to check this out at sdp.org.uk and see if you like our policies. What you would get from me if you were to vote for me and I was successful As I've said to you, I'm a local guy. I was born at Queensway Hospital in 1963. I've lived and breathed and worked and raised a family in the area. I know the people so well that I am passionate, and I would carry that passion to Parliament. What I would say is, it does seem quite, fair to say that the Labour Party will probably win, and they could probably win with a pretty large majority. And, I understand we need change. That's absolutely fair. I totally agree. Tories are toast, as they say. And for good reason. They have let us, the majority of us, down over 14 years. I would wish the Labour government well, and I'd like to work with them, if we could. So that's fine. But what I would say, a large majority as well in this country that they could have is not a healthy thing as well. So I think the real political story won't be that Labour win the election. It will be, what do we do afterwards? We talked about proportional representation earlier. I think, in actual fact, the way the Tories are, they'll be voting for that as well in the next election. But we really do need to sort of think. We do need a strong opposition. I think in some ways it is quite a healthy thing. I think people will go away. They will maybe look at parties like the Greens, like the SDP, and see what we do offer. And I really do urge you to check out our policies. I know we're not that well known. As I said, we're an upcoming party. We relaunched in 2018. We had 100 members there. We're now in thousands. We're fielded 122 candidates. Thank you for listening to me tonight.
I'd like to thank the candidates. I'd like to thank you for coming. I'd like to thank the Eco Group and Glamis Hall for putting this on, because it wouldn't have happened without them. Just give them a round of applause. God bless.
We will make it up quite quickly. It would be really, I if I don't know if the candidates will be hanging around a little bit, but you might want to have a quick review on quick chat. But it's lovely to see you all, and have a good rest of the week. And we'll go back to that next week.
Yeah. If anybody wants a can of pop, packet of crisps, or even a cup of tea, they're still serving.